welcome to our next installment of Coffee Conversations. For those who don't know, I am Jeffrey Brown, the Executive Director for IABA, and this has been something that I've been really, really passionate about bringing to our community. It's just more digital, virtual conversations that where we can engage our own members in thought leadership conversations, but also have some one-on-one dialogue around how did you get where you got, right? I think that, a lot of times we think that there is a secret sauce to getting into leadership roles in companies, and it's important for us as an organization. It's always been important for us as an organization to share how our members and how people are getting to their leadership roles, but then also what are some tricks and trades that they learned along the way. So our Member and Impact Chairman, Mr. Nana Coleman, put together this great coffee conversation series. And so every month we are going to try to bring you guys a different conversation. Our commitment to you is that it'll be up and shared on our YouTube channel within the week of this conversation, and obviously shared out on social so that you guys can share it with your networks. And we encourage you to share tips that you learn in these conversations on social, tag us on it so we can share it. But this is just really, really important for us to continue to bring more conversations to our members. So we're excited that you're here with us today. And I'm going to stop talking here and really turn it over to the stars of the show. Thank you both for being with us. Nana, take it away.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jeff. Rutendo, really excited to have you on. I feel like these days I'm seeing you like 3 or 4 years at the annual meeting. So I'm glad we have a chance to really chat here, and was really excited when you came on the schedule.
The pleasure is mine, Nana. Thank you so much for having me here, and really excited to have this conversation here, and the opportunity to connect and reconnect with many IABA folks. I noticed a lot of people joining joining today. So very excited to share perspectives and hear from others as well, and learn together along the way.
Fantastic. So we'll get started. I think maybe we'll kind of start with where you are and what you do now. So currently you lead strategy for New York Life's Retail Annuities business. Maybe talk to us a little bit about what that product line is, what your role is as a strategy leader, and kind of what ultimately your responsibility to the organization is leading strategy for that particular product line.
No, awesome. Yeah, so New York Life at its core is really a life insurance company, but a key complementary product to selling life insurance solutions is also like serving the retirement needs of our clients, of our customer base, within established markets as well as within the growing retiree market, actually. I mean, you may see things in the news right now about how we are going through this golden age of retirees, close to 11,000 65-year-olds entering into retirement every day at this point in time. It's been coined like peak 65, a peak period in which many people that have worked so many years, worked hard, accumulated assets, are now at this point where they have to solve for the decumulation phase of their retirement. And very many people are not feeling as confidently prepared, even for people that have amassed good amounts of wealth. And part of the reason for that is our retirement system here in the US has progressively moved from DB plan-oriented systems to more DC plan-oriented systems, where ownership of retirement planning is now more in the hands of the individual. So where we come in as New York Life, as well as many other carriers participating in this retail retirement space, is we provide a suite of solutions that enable people to protect their retirement income in ways similar to how pensions have historically served individuals. So our primary cornerstone product, I would say, is our guaranteed income annuity solutions, in which New York Life is actually a leader in the space, been a leader in the space for very many years. And we're excited to be playing a key role in serving this societal need in retirement planning. Now, as head of strategy, uh, my role and the role of my team is to ensure that we are continuing to enhance that leadership position in the space, not just in service of New York Life's institutional interests, but also in service of what we think is really a core societal need at this moment in time. And not just thinking about the current moment of leadership, but thinking about the future, observing trends in the marketplace, and trying to establish how best we should position ourselves to serve the retirement needs of the future. So my work involves really collaborating with my peers within the retail annuities team, trying to establish alignment on matters of strategy, making sure that our business activities are aligned in advancing consistent goals for the organization, being a thought partner with my head of business to make sure that we are also serving those needs, our industry needs, in alignment with the rest of the New York Life organization. As you'd imagine, New York Life is a mix of various businesses that are within the insurance space, serving both individuals and institutions. And at the very top, we have a New York Life strategy. And our strategy here within the retail annuities business is meant to be in service of that strategy, with an awareness of the key attributes of our market within the annuities retirement space.
So I want to kind of click into a couple of things that you said there, right? You said one, being a thought partner for your head of business, and then formulating that strategy in the retail annuities business to be in service in service of and in alignment with that general enterprise level strategy. And so, can you talk a little bit about what those mean, and then kind of backing out of that? How do you go from and maybe speak to your journey, but how do you go from maybe a more technical actuarial career where you would have started your career to getting to the point where you're now a thought partner, or sort of the thought partner for your head of business? You are focused on aligning a business with enterprise strategy, and kind of what that transition was like for you, or that journey was like for you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, so at the core, for New York Life, we are a mutual company. What that means is we are owned by our policy holders. The organization of New York Life is meant to serve that primary stakeholder base. And it allows us to operate in a very unique manner as compared to stock companies that have this additional stakeholder of the equity holders of the company. And I think it's a very nice position to be as an insurance company that is supposed to be long-term minded. We're able to really anchor to the long-term view and not be subject to the quarterly results or quarterly push that comes with having to meet certain earnings targets on a quarter-to-quarter basis. So that allows us to really deliver value to that stakeholder base in a very nice and unique way. And that is a key anchor point for how we even run the business here. We develop solutions and products to serve that client base. And as we manage the business, we are trying to make sure that this business is here for good and is here for the long term, and is particularly there when our policyholders need us the most, which is in times of uncertainty. That is a very tough thing to balance, I believe, if you have more stakeholders trying to have a stake at the table. So that thinking and orientation is very important to everything that we do, all the choices that we make for the business. Strategy at its core is really about resource allocation, and we're trying to make sure that we're taking the core capabilities of the organization and the limited resources that we have, and make sure that they are being pushed toward delivering value in the way that we define value as an organization. Then on the second question of how do you get to doing this type of work coming from being an actuary, New York Life has a very good program. I believe it's the same for many insurance carriers out there, for internal rotations for actuaries that are within the organization. I was fortunate enough to really start my career here at New York Life. I interned here, and upon completion of my intern, I started here full time. And through, like, call it the first like 10 years of my career, I probably was spending 18 months to 24 months in any particular role. So it allowed me to get to see different parts of the business, and starting off from like a very technical standpoint, really understanding the financials of the business, understanding how we price products, how the business makes money in different ways. And that became sort of like a baseline of knowledge that has allowed me to walk into different rooms and be able to contribute in a way that is complementary and additive to the conversation. Transitioning into strategy was not easy. It's something that I took on an incremental path. I would say I started off really in roles that, as I transitioned from my core technical work as an actuary, I started moving into roles that were adjacent to actuarial work, such as product. Then from product, started doing product strategy, product distribution strategy. And ultimately here in retail annuities, I now like really oversee like the full strategy vertical, and along with a very good team of people that have established expertise in the business. So I'm able to come in with an awareness of what I believe I have mastered, but I also come in with the awareness that allows me to ask questions when I'm unsure, allows me to make sure that the right questions are being asked before we reach conclusions on any particular issues. So it comes down to collaboration. Relationship building is a very important part of also being able to find your place in new roles, and roles for which you have not sort of like previously gone through the grilling of training to be ready for.
Yeah, I want to kind of tap into that relationship building piece, because you said in the first 10 years of your career, you're moving around every 12 to 18 months. So obviously you're meeting a lot of people, you're getting exposed to a lot of different jobs, in roles and functions and parts of the company. How did that, rotation and then the relationships you developed contribute to your ability to kind of parlay into a new role, into a new space that, a typical sort of actuarial credentialing wouldn't necessarily signify that, like, oh, it makes sense for this person to be in this role?
Right. I think as you build relationships, I think one of the primary ways you build relationships is by doing a good job wherever you are, doing well and putting your best at the job that's right in front of you. And as you do so, I believe people come to respect you. People come to a place where they want to work with you, and they value your perspective. I think it is reinforcing to your energy as well around the work. So I think there's a natural reinforcing feature that comes with that. And I think along the way, as you discover new things and learn of new interests that you may have, expressing those out and expressing those to folks that you think would have like insight to advise you on the best paths to navigate how you get to those places is an important element as well. So I would sum it up as working hard in the role that you have, along with that, working smart as well, right? In the role you have, as well as making sure that along the way you are leveraging those relationships you're building and using those relationships as peer coaches, mentors. I really see everyone around me as someone that I can learn from. And that type of mindset naturally leads to learning from others, getting advice from others. And I think those two key elements have worked, seem to work very well for me in my experience here.
So again, even kind of extending from that, I have to imagine as a strategist, you're no longer sort of doing the work. You're relying on your ability to influence the work. You're relying on your ability to be able to share insights across various functions, across various roles, managing various stakeholder interests. And so, how would you what does it look like to win in your role, right? In your role as the head of strategy for this retail annuities business, what does it look like to win? What does it take to win? And what maybe has been one of your most significant wins that you're really proud of?
Right. I think winning really takes harnessing the strength of the team. I think I moved from being in roles where I could be an individual contributor, really like pushing the work hard, defining my personal project plan, and um, sort of drawing up my critical path for completion of the work. When the scope expands, things change and they change really quickly. And for me, it wasn't like an easy thing to navigate, coming to that realization of I have more that is being asked of me now. And in order to be productive, I need to be able to influence at a larger scale, and not just influence, but understand organizational dynamics enough to see the leverage points for who are the top two people I should partner on a certain type of project in order to advance it in a meaningful way. So it has taken some level of self-awareness on my personal abilities, some level of reflection on how best to leverage myself as well as leverage others around me, um, along with knowing when I should step back, because the temptation as an actuary, when I see technical work, I really like want to dive deep and go to a level of depth that sometimes would be better facilitated by someone that is like much closer to the work. So trusting those around me to help support and guide certain technical decisions, and trying to figure out where best I complement the effort of the collective team is an area of consistent reflection in as far as establishing and figuring out how best to win in the space that is drawn up for me.
No, fantastic. And I think that piece of wanting that instinct to kind of dive in on some of the technical stuff is very resonant for me. in some of my most recent endeavors, where it's like, oh, I can just build it myself, and it's like, well, I should probably avoid that instinct. Maybe, if you can, so you can talk to us a little bit about how to win and leveraging relationships, trust. I mean, that's a huge piece, I think, especially for a lot of us who are actuaries on the call. What was maybe, is there maybe a watershed moment for you that allowed you to say, hey, I can trust the folks around me, or, this is why it makes sense to lean into some of this expertise that's around me, even if it's not something that, it's not skill sets that I'm familiar with, whether it's maybe a marketer or an underwriter or whatever it is. Like, what was maybe one or some of those moments where you really were able to say, like, okay, I kind of get this business. I get that. I get why all the talent is positioned the way that it is.
Right. I would say, like, in my current role, which has been my most recent transition, I transitioned into a retirement business, and I'd been operating really on the life insurance side of New York Life for a while. But in making that transition, I was also immediately tasked with, like, leading the strategy team. And not only that, but it was also at a pivotal moment where we're really looking to do some deep dive work around um, evolving our strategy, refining our thinking about the future. So I found myself immediately in a new role and having to um, manage and lead through this, like, very cross-functional effort, and sitting in rooms with people that have very established expertise and experience in the business, but also needing to influence them on a matter that involved, like, bringing new thinking, bringing new insight to how we manage and run the business, how we envision the future, which can be a very difficult moment if you're stepping into the room, you're still trying to gain trust, you're trying to understand the architecture of the organization, as well as the people that make it up. So it was a humbling moment. That was also, like, a very uh, key part in my career, in that uh, I very quickly realized that I knew I was never going to be able to do it alone, but it had never been, like, so prominent in my mind that this is something that's going to need uh, collective success in order to achieve results. So being able to anchor my team around how best to harness the collective knowledge of the organization, how best to facilitate discussion on varying matters involving the business, and matters for which even my immediate team didn't have, like, very proximate expertise, uh, allowed me to sit in this place of, success in places like these is really about harnessing the collective power of the people around you. And fast forward, looking back, I think it was just, like, a very key moment, and something that I took away a lot of learnings from, in as far as how to continue to develop and evolve as a leader, especially as a leader that may increasingly be in places where I have to operate with less domain expertise, with more reliance on the people around me, with more reliance on um, the forces that play out within a strong team.
Yeah, I mean, you're hitting on some things that I want to kind of keep going down this road a little bit. Especially since, you're talking about leading a team where you don't have the domain expertise, and sometimes they may not have the proximate expertise to whatever it is you're tasked with working on or leading or pushing forth. So maybe talk about that transition, and that process and that journey of leading folks that are not actually coming from a space that you're familiar with. Like, it's one thing to maybe lead a team of actuaries. You've done the work. You can help people work through the models or whatever. It's another thing to lead a team of strategists who are working on potentially much broader problems.
Right. I think it really takes a lot of having a genuine interest and showing the genuine interest that you have in learning, and not just like learning about the business, learning about the people, having an interest in people, and having those types of conversations that allow you to really know what people are about, what drives them. It becomes a very important part of uh, integrating teams and making sure that you have people around you that have your back. And it goes back to like one of the things I said earlier in this conversation, relationship building, building relationships of trust, and not just like walking into the room believing that you need things from people, but also trying to figure out those places where you can deliver value to people. Ultimately, you're almost like building this like bank account of trust, and taking a moment sometimes to pause and ask yourself whether you're also depositing into that bank account,
Yeah.
and not just like making withdrawals. And I think it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes a certain level of attention that one would need to train themselves to. And I think it has to be a daily habit.
Yeah, no, I think that that idea of attention and attentiveness, and this idea of kind of this mutual bank account of goodwill with your team members is critical, right? You know, if you make those deposits, then people recognize, okay, like when this guy's asking me to do something, you know, I know that this is a serious question because he's shown up for me before. You know, he's supported me in this way in the past, and so, and I think sometimes it moves us beyond sometimes the transactional interactions that we can often have when we need to just kind of get some things done. And in some ways, that leads me to my next question in terms of balancing the immediacy of certain decisions versus kind of a long-term view. And you reference this from a financial perspective. As a guy that worked in an FP&A function for about 8 years at a stock company, I certainly understand that pressure where you're looking at things like, you know, this makes no sense even from like a 3 year perspective, but you know, you told the street you were going to hit a number at the end of the quarter, so you better hit that number. You have to balance that, but maybe with a, you know, different time horizons, different pressures, but also broader scope, right? It's not just financially. And so maybe talk about the challenges of that balance, and then maybe some of the more general challenges that you have leading a strategy function, again, with these differing interests, different stakeholders that have to kind of come together to execute for the business.
Yeah, and I guess to make it even like more broadly relevant, and set the context for what makes that challenge real, and not just for us here at New York Life, but I think for very many insurance organizations, which are large, old institutions. Over the years, each organization has figured out how to do certain things really well. So you've figured out your niche, you've figured out your established core. You do well there, but something tells you it's not going to be sustainable forever into the future. That said, you need to continue to do well at what you're able to do in the current world to keep the lights on, but you also have to acknowledge and honor the future and how things are changing around you. So I think it's an inherent conflict that exists across organizations of how do you do well at what you're doing right now, in exploiting current opportunities whilst also exploring the future and trying to figure out that next big bet that opens up future opportunity for the organization. And I think the right word is balance. There's no perfect answer. The organizational context will always inform how well you balance that. But importantly for leadership, I think the key thing is to own that conflict, to be able to own that tension and have consistent messaging for the organization that you're leading in order to make sure that there is clarity on why you're doing the different things that you're doing that sometimes seem to be at odds with each other. And it then becomes very important to have like a clear, consistent strategy because you're working with a limited amount of resources, a limited amount of attention to both do well here and now, but also deliver success for the future. So you can only spread your bets so much and still do well. So you have to have a consistent framework for how best to inform the types of bets that you want to be making, and be able to manage the narrative for organizational coherence.
Yeah, I heard a lot of gems in there, right? I heard acknowledge and honor the future. I love that. Um, Managing narrative, love that as well. Owning the tension, love that as well. And I think for me, that's resonant. With the last 5 years of my career being in startups, leading product development for a couple of startups, bringing products to market, where you're trying to take a view of where does this company need to be, and how do I back into that, versus like payroll needs to be made now, or like the bills need to be paid now, or we have this operational thing to get done in the next 3 days, otherwise we're not going to be able to launch, or we need to ship code. And so it's been definitely a different context for me, but it's extremely resonant. But I hope that folks kind of took away some of those gems. I want to click into one of those. You talked about acknowledging and honoring the future. That's just such pretty language. With that, what are some of the things that you're paying attention to, particularly in the retirement industry, that you think it's important for actuaries to pay attention to, but also that you think actuaries can maybe provide unique contributions for?
Right. Yeah, I think in as far as like trends that may be of influence for how the actuarial profession evolves, yeah, I struggle to get through all this conversation without saying AI or Gen AI. I think
That's fine.
that's something for people to be paying attention to, even if it means experimenting marginally. I think there's going to be I'm unable to define what exactly that looks like for actuaries in the future, but I think experimenting with current tools and trying to figure out how best they integrate into current systems and operations is an important area, and one where I think actuaries, given their unique skill of being analytical, being data oriented, we have a unique competitive advantage over other professions. But in order to harness the moment now, we have to make sure that we're not complacent and really push the bounds of what we do and what we are able to deliver within current organizations, within society. So I think that's an important area for actuaries to focus on. So I'll point to that. Then an additional area for us thinking about the future is, I know I'm personally very focused on the demographic shift within the USA and how that influences the retirement space. But I think there are very many other adjacencies beyond retirement financial planning, related to having an older population, various types of insurance opportunities, exist out there, some that have already been employed by various industries, perhaps marginally, but may become bigger opportunities in the future just because of the quite accelerated shift to an older age concentration. I think that's an interesting area of focus. And all of that taken together with the very many things happening around us across the world, an increasingly more volatile world, uncertainties in the financial markets. I think all of those present opportunities for actuaries to be thinking about.
Love it, love it. And then finally, we're talking about, or we just talked about kind of, how actuaries can think about some of these future trends, whether they're technological, whether they're demographic, and focused on where the industry's headed. Thinking about actuaries as partners to strategists, and I asked this question with a particular, how should I say this? I think in my former life, I viewed strategy as sort of, forgive me for saying this, but soft, right? I'm coming from this actuarial background. We're running models, we're producing projections, and I get in meetings with strategy folks here and there, and it's like, what are we even talking about, right? But over time, I came to appreciate the exposure that the strategists that I was working with, one, the tensions that they had to manage within the business and all of the varying interests of the varying stakeholders that were incentivized by different things. Like, that's a lot to just manage, even just from a personality perspective. The tensions in terms of business objectives, and the exposure they had to just the different aspects of the business. Mm-hmm. And so if there's a thing that actuaries can do to either learn from strategists, partner with strategists, how to be better partners to strategists in their businesses, and potentially ascend to roles like yours, what would that look like? Like, how do you think folks on this call can start down that path if they were interested in that?
Right. I agree with you that sometimes strategy can appear to be the more amorphous part of what people do within an organization, and I think it takes a lot of work to make it like really tangible. It's a function where you don't really own any core part of the operation, but you're somewhat involved in helping to facilitate decision making. I think we live in a world now where there's always been so much data, but we increasingly have tools that allow us to really leverage more data in decision making. And I think the more we bring in data into framing our decisions, as well as influencing how decisions are made, strategy plays a more critical role. And I would say I really see that as a key element that can allow actuaries to be partners to strategy, as well as how actuaries can find a relevant access point into getting involved with work of strategy. We handle a lot of data, but perhaps a lot of the ways with which we've handled data are sort of like established within the rules of managing certain established processes, be it like regulatory or how financial reporting has always been handled. I think that same data layer, organized differently, can help to answer a lot of new questions on business strategy if people are thoughtful in how that data is collected and how that data is being processed within the organization. So I think a huge part of the roles of the role that actuaries play is the role of developing business strategy. So I would say actuaries are already there in as far as helping to facilitate decision making on matters of strategy in various organizations. And maybe we just don't brand ourselves that way. But I think we're already there, and the transition may actually be much easier than one would see it.
Maybe to that point, and to kind of close out prepared questions here, let's click into that a little bit. So you said the transition may be easier than it appears. How might you suggest, and we talked about this a little bit earlier with things like relationships and being able to, leverage relationships and do a good job where you're at. But how do you see people being able to build that bridge to transition, given the fact that actuaries already have a fundamental role to play in the strategy of insurance companies, even if that's not their sort of specified responsibility? How do you see people sort of explicitly building that bridge for themselves?
Yes, I would say we need to stop seeing the walls around us. We need to break the silos. I think quite often we're already operating with a knowledge base and an experience base that is relevant way beyond the domains in which our roles are defined. So I think the moment that one is able to personally stop seeing the barriers around how their role is defined, they can start asking questions about things that they are not necessarily directly involved with. And I think within asking questions and starting the conversation, people will recognize that, oh, I think this person has something to bring into this conversation. People start to engage you. And sometimes that initial engagement happens less formally. And the moment that people recognize that you're delivering value, you can start to drive what may become a much larger conversation within your organization in ways that perhaps sometimes like difficult to imagine.
Yeah, I mean that last part is extremely resonant for me because I think it sort of is the path that has underscored even my own career transition, and so definitely can relate to that idea of sort of breaking down the silos, mentally removing some of those barriers and kind of having an open curiosity. So really, really insightful stuff today, Rutendo. We really appreciate you being able to sit down for this conversation. I want to open it up to folks on the call. If you have any questions, feel free to come off mute and ask. But thus far, this has been a really fantastic discussion here. Or if you want to put them in the chat, feel free. But also feel free to come off mute and ask.
I have a question for you, Nana.
Uh-oh. I wasn't prepared for that.
Off script. No, really, I think you have had a number of interesting, unique experiences yourself, entrepreneurial, and now you're playing a part in the education of the next generation of actuaries. If there isn't a question on the line right now, I'll just be interested in your reflections too in how you were able to take your actuarial skill set and transition through like those different domains and your reflections as you went through the whole process.
Yeah, no, I'll try to get through that quickly. Yeah. I say this like I don't say this like cheekily at all. I had actually failed out of principal student program within like 2 years of joining. And so very quickly it was kind of like, oh, this actuarial future thing, may not look like how I thought it would look when I was in college and things were going well and, resume looked great and things like that. I knew it was important to still build the actuarial foundation. I was fortunate to be on a team where the work I was doing was relatively rigorous from a model, capital modeling, FP&A, that type of stuff. And so that gave me a fundamental understanding of how to think about organizing ideas from first principles, being able to just quantify stuff, right? Hey, we have this idea, my team members would scratch out models in Excel or let's run it through the model. Let's see what it looks like. And so that kind of matched with the other curiosities that I had, whether it was kind of in the financial inclusion space, various spaces around insurance innovation, it bode well for me being able to be useful in that space and being able to take things from concept to now we have a plan for execution. And so that's kind of where I was able to make some space for myself from an entrepreneurial perspective. The teaching thing really was relationships, right? So I would also say like much of my entrepreneurial journey has been about relationships, and you kind of know people, like you said, you express what you're interested in. There's some things that I was trying to push when I was at principal. Ultimately, it didn't work out, but people knew me. They knew, my work. They knew, how I worked, and so I benefited from that. And so your name kind of gets circulated around when you've expressed what you're interested in. The teaching thing was just, that was kind of like serendipitous. And I can't say that that was anything that like I tried to do. I had just maintained some relationships. Some folks knew that I'd worked in an organization that was focused on some multinational type of transactions, even though it was at a relatively small scale. And it was like, hey, you seem to be able to kind of talk to people. You want to teach this class. But I would say that the real value for me is that it allowed me to get some exposure in some domains that I wasn't familiar with. So I don't have a background in politics. I don't have a background in management. I haven't seen an economics textbook in 15 years before I started teaching this class. But it allowed me to just kind of like extend my range a little bit. And so that's the thing that I would encourage folks as well, is just like say yes to stuff, because you never know. All these experiences stretch you and grow you in ways that you might not have anticipated. So yeah, appreciate that question. Do we have anything from the audience?
Hi, I wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Emily Gamble. I'm currently a sophomore at Morgan State University, and I'm majoring in actuarial science. And I wanted to ask you, I feel like I want to be able to exercise the skills needed that I would need, for my internships and stuff like that. And I feel like that can get kind of lost, especially when I'm focusing on classes. So I was thinking about trying to find a role that isn't necessarily based in actuarial science, but is still in the insurance industry. And I wanted to ask if you've ever done anything like that. Are there any roles that you suggest just to still be exposed to the industry while taking exams and preparing to reach fellowship?
Rutendo, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. I can share a little bit of my own experience. I recall like my first internship, my first two corporate internships out of college were actually not in the insurance space. I did an internship in FP&A for an aviation company in I believe it was my sophomore summer. Picked up a lot of good skills there. I was able to also like self-design a lot of my work around picking up the type of skills that I needed to have. They probably partly allowed me to do that because they were not paying me for the internship. So I was able to sort of like bargain for the work instead. So that's one thing I did, and I thought it was really relevant. It was a good sort of warm up for being in a true actuarial role. Another role that I did as a shorter internship was with a wealth asset management firm. It was more like a family office where they put me on the fixed income trading desk. I didn't know what I was doing there, but I picked up a lot of like in-office social skills, I'll say. And there's a lot of things that I learned during that short window of time that still resonate in how I operate to this day. So I would say early on, be flexible. To Nana's point, don't be afraid to expand your range. Once you're an actuary, you have like your whole life to be an actuary. So starting out wider, you're already in a good place. You seem to have like focus and alignment with where you want to be long term. Don't be afraid to pick up other skills that are somewhat adjacent and complementary to the core of being an actuary.
I like that idea of kind of starting wider and being willing to just develop broader skills. The other thing I would say, Emily, And I literally just advised a student on this a couple months ago. First year actuarial science student, real bright kid. But I said, hey, like if you can't find anything actuarial, go work for an agency. And the reason I say that is a lot of times, as actuaries, we're manufacturing the products, we're doing the solvency work and the regulatory work and all these things, but we actually don't know what those conversations with customers look like in our daily work. And I think it's important to be able to see that and see how the rubber meets the road in the insurance industry. So if that's an option for you, an opportunity that potentially comes up, or that you can take advantage of, I'd encourage you to explore that possibility, especially since it's a less, let's say, restrictive or rigorous path to that type of opportunity. I mean, there's agencies all over. So that's what I would add to that as well. But great question.
Thank you so
Other
much.
questions? Yeah, not a problem. Other questions? Man, actuaries are a tough crowd. I've got one for you, Rutendo. So you've obviously done the actuarial stuff, you've done the strategy stuff. Are there other places that you kind of see your career naturally evolving to? From actuarial to product line strategy to are there other spaces that feel like they're natural evolutions of where you've been?
Yeah, I think from a place of leading strategy, there could be a number of different places where I could pursue further learning. Just because strategy allows you to see the business from various facets. It doesn't necessarily then make you like competent in other domains, but you become familiar enough to at least be conversant in
Right.
in contributing elsewhere. So without having to speak for like specific aspirations I have right now, I would say I'm excited about the opportunity to continue to expand my range, as you mentioned, Nana. Being curious, raising my hand, and looking for the next place where I could be of value. So I would say, the things that I run into that interest me, but currently just being in strategy and being able to see the full landscape of a business has been like very interesting and probably one of the best parts of my career so far. I just like to continue to add value in the current space and partner with others along the way. There's a lot happening across the business in various functions, various domains, and being in strategy just offers me an opportunity to be involved in all those places as interesting things happen.
Yeah, I like where you took that response. I wasn't necessarily trying to say like, "Hey, whose job are you gunning for?" But it really was more about is there anything that sort of strategy kind of has allowed you to see that you're like, "Oh, I'm kind of curious about that." And I think that's a general kind of advertisement for what you get to see in strategy roles is that you have an exposure to the entire organization. So definitely appreciate that. We've got time for one question if anyone wants it before we close out here. Anyone with any last questions or thoughts?
I have another question.
Yeah, have at it, Emily.
Is there any specific traits or skills that you would look for in a potential candidate when, like, for internships or when you want someone to join your team? Are there specific values that you look for at New York Life?
Yeah, I think New York Life looks for a certain amount of preparation on the part of the student. One way of doing that is to take some exams, and making some progress in exams not only allows you to demonstrate your interest, it allows you to also um, uh, give a signal of the amount of success you would likely have with progressing through like the full exam process. I think early on in your career, it's just important to show your enthusiasm, show interest, show that you're prepared, you've learned about the company, you've learned about the industry, and demonstrate that you have a true alignment with the profession and a sense of purpose around how this is right and good for you. And yeah, I would say, most important thing, showing some preparation around like exams and developing around communication skills that are not only critical for the work that you get to do as an actuary, but they also become like a key tool for how you sell yourself into the types of opportunities that you're looking for.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, we got one more from the chat that I'm going to ask, and then we'll wrap it up. So, did you have an alternative or a plan B in case the actuary thing didn't work out? It's kind of a fun one.
No, that's interesting. So, one thing that I guess I would have mentioned at the top of the conversation is, so I was born and raised in Zimbabwe, and I moved here to the US around 2008, and I moved here by way of getting into college, took exams, got internships, and like ended up here at New York Life. But at the time that I was making that transition from Zimbabwe was going through a tough moment, hyperinflation. The environment didn't seem to present as many opportunities as I would have or wanted to have. And I was still like in exploratory mode. But I was fortunate enough to get what was almost like a student trainee program into one of the big four firms that then placed me on an assignment in one of the more established insurance organizations in Southern Africa. So I found myself doing like audit work in an insurance organization. So I would say maybe that was like my plan B. And around the same time, I was applying for colleges here. But the funny story is like around the time I was doing that audit work, I got bored really quickly. So I would sit at the desk that I was assigned to at the working location, get through my work really quickly. Then I would spend the rest of the day just like loitering around the building. Security never got to me. And along the way, I met some actuaries in the building and they described their work to me. I was like, wow, what you do here is really interesting. So by the time I was coming here to the US, I took on a math major and started taking actuarial exams. And that was part of my plan B was part of my inspiration into what became plan A.
Love that. Love to hear that. Well, Rutendo, again, thank you so much for taking this time. It was great to catch up in this conversation and learn a little bit more about your journey and your role. We really appreciate your contribution to our community this morning. So with that, I'll pass it back to Jeff to close us and provide any closing announcements.
Hey, again, thank you both for an amazing conversation. Thank you, though,
Jeff,
for
you're
those
muted.
who let's try this one more time. So, all right, thank you all for joining us today. Again, this has been an amazing conversation, so we thank you guys for bringing us those insights. For those who might have joined a little bit late, we will put this recording up on our YouTube channel, probably within the week or early next week. And we just encourage you guys to join us next month for our next conversation. Again, let me pull that date really quickly, but we're going to be joined by, if I remember correctly, Lynn Bloom from EY in April. So thank you guys again for participating today. We appreciate you for joining us, and we hope you have an amazing day. So you guys, thank you again for joining. Have a great day. Bye.
Thanks,
Have a good
everyone.
day.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thanks, Nana. Thanks, Jeff.